Incredible acts of bravery and heroism in the Nashville school massacre as we learn about the victims, many heroes who spent their final moments of their lives trying to save others. Plus, growing questions about why the deadly shooting at the Christian elementary school isn't being investigated as a hate crime. Hello, everyone. This is Outnumbered. I'm Kaylee McEnany here with my co-hosts Emily Campagno and Harris Faulkner. Also joining us, Culture Plus Group co-founder and CEO Lily Gil Valletta, and Fox News contributor and contributing writer for Forbes, Richard Fowler. Well, the 6 victims of Monday's shooting will be remembered today at a vigil. And now a clear picture of their courage is emerging. Head of school Catherine Kuntz sprang into action when the shots first rang out. She was on a Zoom call, but she ran towards the shooter and sacrificed her own life by putting herself in the line of fire to protect her students. And one of the young victims displayed bravery that defied her young age. At just 9 years old, Evelyn Dickhouse was murdered as she attempted to save her classmates by trying to pull the fire alarm. Police say the suspect was a former student who had detailed maps of the Christian school. They say the shooting was targeted, but it's not being investigated as a federal hate crime, and Senator Josh Hawley says that just doesn't make sense.
Police in Nashville have said this school was targeted. It wasn't random. It wasn't happenstance. No, they were targeted. That is a federal hate crime. There should be a federal hate crime investigation. Federal government should make all of its resources available to Nashville police. We need to prevent this kind of thing from happening again. And to do that, Laura, we need to know how it happened now. We need to know the kind of hateful rhetoric that led to this. We need to know what the influences on this shooter were. And we need to be clear about the truth here. When you target Christians, you target religious believers, that's a hate crime.
Emily, Catherine Kuntz and Evelyn Dickhouse, that young hero, Cynthia Peak, a substitute teacher, Mike Hill, he was a father of 8, as I learned on the Faulkner Focus, a grandfather of 14. He was Big Mike to his students, his family said, and he took great pleasure and found tremendous joy in his job with his students. And William Kenny, that young 9-year-old, had an unflappable spirit, according to his family, unfailingly kind, gentle when the situation called for it, quick to laugh, always inclusive of others. He loved his sister, adored his parents. And then, of course, Hallie Scraggs, the daughter of the pastor. Greg Laurie, a well-known Christian pastor, wrote this, and I think a lot of people are asking, how can I make sense of this? What do I do? How do I make sense of this senseless loss? And here's what he had to say. Let's all be praying for the Scruggs family. They lost their beloved little girl, Hallie, in this act of pure evil. Having lost a son, I know they are in unimaginable pain right now. I know there are so many why questions. After our son died, Pastor Chuck Smith said to me, never trade what you do know for what you don't know. And here is what we do know. God loves this family. Little Hallie Scruggs is in heaven right now. They will all be reunited one day. Hallie is not just a part of their past. She is also a part of their future. May God comfort this family as only he can do today. And let's pray for the other 5 families.
It just calls to mind Psalms. God heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds. There is no other solace, there is no other source at all than God right now. And the fact that all of them knew Jesus before they died, to me, is the greatest comfort in this moment. My deepest prayers, my deepest condolences go out to those families. And I think about ordinary, extraordinary. I think about ordinary men and women who, in moments, in split seconds of choices and decision-making, exhibit extraordinary courage, extraordinary heroism. Catherine Kuntz, as you just detailed everyone's, and I'm so grateful that you did. Catherine Kuntz, at that moment, who not only prepared the school for active shooter training, she employed, this was an elementary school, and she employed training for these children, for their faculty and staff. And without such, they would not have deployed that in that moment. She undoubtedly saved countless lives. And then in the split second where she heard gunshots, she confronted the shooter, as evidenced by the way that she was laying in the hallway. It was a confrontational moment there. Evelyn Dickhouse, little Evelyn, who pulled the fire alarm to save others. We know that now Officer Colazzo was a Marine Corps veteran. He had responded on the Christmas bombings on 2020 there in that same town. Officer Engelbert had just received an award for precision policing, and we saw it demonstrated on their body cam footage. So what an honor to see the best of us exhibited, ordinary and extraordinary, in uniform and out.
Yeah, well said, beautifully said. You know, Richard, the DOJ has targeted 34 individuals for blocking access to abortion clinics. They put out a memo about radical traditional Catholics, and I think Hawley has a point. You should be looking into this as a hate crime. I would assume so, especially given that many of the prosecutions against Christian individuals have been acquitted in a court of law.
Well, listen, I agree. I agree with the senator that they should be prosecuting this as a hate crime, and I think now more than ever we should have tougher hate crime legislation in this country. This is not the first time we've seen something like this happen because of somebody's race, their sexual orientation, or their religious beliefs. We saw it happen at the Buffalo supermarket. We saw it happen in other places. And so when we're having a conversations about hate crime, any crime for that matter, any mass shooting, we need to be figuring out how we get to the solution as quick as possible. Where I won't go as far as the senators, I think it's too early at this point to jump to speculation. This happened on Monday. I think it's time we have to let the local law enforcement do their job, and then the federal law enforcement will come in and see if a hate crime is prosecuted here. But I hope the senator, as well as any senator on Capitol Hill and Congressperson, would say, what can we be doing to ensure that we're prosecuting hate crimes more strongly? He was the only senator that voted against the bill to stop Asians from Asian hate right after COVID-19. It was a 94-1 vote, with Josh Hawley being the one vote against it. So if we're going to have a conversation about hate crime legislation in this country, it should be something that's absolutely bipartisan.
Well, let's listen to, Harris, if you'll listen to this, President Biden, when he was asked if this will be looked into as a hate crime.
My name is Joe Biden.
Nashville school shooting. Do you believe that Christians were targeted?
I have no idea.
Josh Hawley believes they were. What do you say to that?
Well, I probably don't then.
Probably don't.
No, I'm joking. No, I have no idea.
Remarkably tone deaf.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so par for the course now, right? And we know when he says, "Oh, it's the truth," we know that that's a lie at that moment. Like it's either his memory failing or whatever. So when he says he's only joking, I don't believe him anymore. I mean, that's callous. That is, and what have I termed it before? You can choose not to be the world's only living heart donor, or you can choose to be that person. He's telling us what his choice is in that moment. And it's embarrassing. People on the world stage see our president react to what we know is unique to America. And we know we have to deal with this problem of shootings at schools. We know that, unfortunately, we sit alone in this category with how many we have. And as parents on this couch, it's intolerable. I loved what you said yesterday. As moms, there are things that we can do. Let's put some pressure on some of these school districts. Let's show up at those meetings. Kayla, you were right.
Yeah.
I got the calendar out last night. I know when mine are, and I don't care if they move them. I'm just going to keep following them because they do that.
Yeah.
They change the dates a lot.
Yeah.
So, but we have to do what we can do. But when I see the president, who was supposed to lead with condolences from his heart, to be the consoler in chief, fail time after time after time, I don't believe it's a joke or a mistake anymore. I think we're seeing somebody that maybe we didn't know existed.
Yeah, to that point, you know, Lily, the moment the president came out on Monday, I was waiting to hear what he would say. At the moment, I happened to be in tears thinking about these victims. I was in a group text with moms. We were thinking about our own kids. We were thinking about the loss of these families. I believe that moment in my life spoke for how Americans generally were feeling. And you saw the president come up, and I saw a smiling face. I had it on mute, and I turned up the volume, and this is the first thing I heard as I was in pain along with the grieving nation.
My name is Joe Biden. I'm Dr. Joe Biden's husband. And I ate Jenny's ice cream, chocolate chip. I came down because I heard there was chocolate chip ice cream. By the way, I have a whole refrigerator full upstairs. You think I'm kidding? I'm not.
Now, he went on to address the shooting. He did just after that moment, but that just missed the mark.
It did, and like you, Kaylee, I was one of those moms. My son is in 4th grade, like many of these little kids that were affected. In tears, they go to a Christian school. Our head of school was connected to the head of school that passed.
Wow.
It's not the moment to have that joke. Be funny, try to connect with the audience at another time. But I think Harris is spot on. It's the tone deaf, that moment of disconnected empathy, which is exactly what we want at that moment of truth, a moment of pain. We've seen it in other instances in our history, whether it was 9/11. I was here in New York. We felt that you rise above politics at times of crisis. You lean into what we know, as Emily said so well, our faith, our core values. That is what we have. And when I see even in the press conferences that very day, some officials apologizing from that stage because they prayed, and that's what we do in the South, that to me was very telling of that. Why do we feel like we need to apologize?
Why?
About prayer. When we did it for Damar Hamlin and 32 teams posted pray for Damar, but when it's our kids, all of a sudden it's not as welcoming or accepted. There is something off in the fabric of America, and I think that's what we need to focus on.
No doubt
regardless of
about it.
Unapologetic in our faith.
Exactly.
I say it constantly.
I agree with you, Harris. I think the one thing I would add to that is that when we talk about prayer, we also have to make sure that there, as my pastor used to teach me, you have to have some works included in that. And with so many school shootings, the question is, where are the works? When are we going to say that this is not acceptable in America and pass laws to change it?
And when
Well,
are we
and just
going
to-
to put politics aside and say, let's secure our schools?
Right.
Because as I
can
said
agree on
yesterday,
that.
our children
I'm
are
going
more
to the board
precious than
meetings.
diamonds.
You told me.
Yes,
I'm there.
I can agree with
Mama
that.
Bear, absolutely.